interview with the Atlantic Council, and the woman speaking is the U.S. Southcom commander. Her name is General Laura Richardson.
This region, why this region matters with all of its rich resources and rare earth elements. You've got the lithium triangle, which is needed for technology today. 60% of the world's lithium is in the lithium triangle: Argentina, Bolivia, Chile. You just have the largest oil reserves, light sweet crude, discovered off of Guyana over a year ago. You have Venezuela's resources as well with oil, copper, gold. China gets 36% of its food source from this region. We have the Amazon, lungs of the world. We have 31% of the world's fresh water in this region too. I mean, it's just off the charts. But then when you talk about trade is unbelievable. The trade in the region, you know, I talked about all the ties that we have with this hemisphere. But the PRC and a lot of our countries in this region is the number one trade partner, with the United States number two in most cases. Not in most cases, I would say in some cases. However, to see the increase in investment in trade from 2002 from China, 18 billion up to 450 billion now, and on its way, what is predicted to be about 750 billion in the near future. And so I think we have a lot at stake.
Yeah, I mean, it's not too surprising for people who know about the history of coups that the U.S. has organized around the world. But, I mean, hearing it so blatantly is very constructive, especially at the Atlantic Council, which is NATO's de facto think tank funded by the arms industry. At the beginning of that interview, they actually show, they say this series is sponsored by Saab, the weapons corporation. So, I mean, it just says everything about how politics actually is made and how it's driven by corporate interests. And she says it all very clearly. Latin America is one of the most resource-rich regions of the world. You, Rania, have been doing great work. You and Eugene Puryear, I saw, did an excellent interview with a journalist talking about cobalt in Congo. And of course, people know that Africa also is an extremely rich region in natural resources, and that Western corporations have been exploiting those resources. And it's the same story in Latin America. You know, they say that the continent has been both blessed and cursed with these natural resources. We can talk about the 1973 coup, famously against Salvador Allende in Chile. And people probably know that the people of Chile they democratically elected a socialist, Allende, and he reasserted national control over the copper. Chile is the world's largest producer of copper, and copper is extremely important for all kinds of technologies, and increasingly so. In fact, Goldman Sachs, one of the world's largest investment banks, referred to copper as the new oil. And they said there's going to be a new campaign to control copper around the world. And the largest producer of copper is Chile, and the second largest producer of copper is Peru. And that's going to be a topic we'll talk about today. Also, we know that Venezuela has the world's largest oil reserves, but not just Venezuela. Brazil is a significant oil producer. Even Colombia and Ecuador have significant oil reserves. Lithium, which is increasingly important around the world. Lithium has been referred to as the white gold, and it's needed for batteries in electric cars and phones and computers. And the world's largest lithium reserves are in Bolivia, and over 2/3 of the entire global lithium supply, at least known global lithium supply, is in the lithium triangle, which the Southcom commander, Laura Richardson, mentioned, which consists of Bolivia, Chile, and Argentina. And we've seen that, in fact, in Peru, which also has lithium reserves, 2 months before the US-backed coup against the elected president Pedro Castillo, left-wing lawmakers who supported Castillo's government introduced legislation to nationalize Peru's lithium reserves. By the way, Mexico, under its progressive president Andrés Manuel López Obrador, they actually have done that. The López Obrador government last year nationalized lithium and renationalized all oil, because Mexico is a significant oil producer. And Mexico, after the Mexican Revolution, which happened between 1910 and 1920, they created a new progressive constitution that said that Mexico's natural resources belong to the people. And then they eventually created a state-owned oil company. And that was partially privatized by the neoliberal governments in Mexico, especially under President Enrique Peña Nieto. So López Obrador, he renationalized the oil and also the lithium. So we see across Latin America a clear trend toward trying to nationalize resources and then using the revenue from those resources to fund social programs and healthcare and education. And we know throughout history for many decades, the US has sponsored coups and backed dictatorships that impose those kinds of neoliberal reforms that privatize those natural resources. So hearing it from the mouth of not a politician, but from the commander of the part of the US military that oversees operations in South America is extremely revealing. Again, I want to stress this point. We're not listening to someone from the Treasury. We're not listening to someone from the Department of Energy. We're listening to someone from the Pentagon. And she's making it clear that the Pentagon knows what its real job is. It's to maintain control over trade routes and natural resources.
Exactly.